is a public hearing. Consideration of United Way Law Enforcement Against Drugs Drug Education Grant for $6,133. I will ask Dr. Niles to talk about it.
All right. Good evening, everybody. We were contacted by the United Way 6 to 8 weeks ago or so about the possibility of being one of the lead school or the lead school in the North Country for a lead grant. This grant goes out and is a support to work with local police units in schools, and they bring the police officers into the school and do some training with teachers and some direct training with students as well. The grant will run for about a year. We have till April 2020 to expend the fund. So we were excited. We worked quite a bit. Crystal did a lot of the legwork on this and communication directly with Chief Smith. Unfortunately, he's not able to be here this evening, but she's done a lot of the work with it, worked out the details with it. And again, it's a one-time grant. It does exceed $5,000, so we're required to have the public hearing in order to accept the grant, ask questions or answer questions, and adjust our budget accordingly.
So are there any questions?
I have a question. What's the difference between this and DARE? Do we still do the DARE program?
This, Ralph, I think this is just another partnership with school and a local community organization. In this case, the police force. It's a grant funded program. As far as DARE, I do know that at the elementary level there has been some ongoing work. I think primarily with 6th grade. With drug prevention programs. This would expand that. Donna's shaking her head. That's a good sign that I'm right. But this would be an expansion of that, at least for the next year. As part of this grant, then after that, there may be funds for it going forward. There may not be, but at any rate, it'll have an impact on the students, give the teachers additional support and training as well. Yeah.
And there's no match to this or cost to the school district?
No.
Okay.
No, it'll cover. It doesn't really set up something that has an ongoing cost.
Okay. If there's no further questions, I'll consider this public hearing closed. I will now open the school board meeting. And we have some recognition. Tri-M Musical Honorary. Come on up.
Your show, Chrissy. Everybody.
I'll swear, like right here.
Sure. Can you sing us a song?
I can.
Yes, you can.
Oh, yes, you can.
We have some of our band and chorus kids here from our junior chapter and senior chapter. So we have inducted 21 students from 7th to 12th grade.
I am the president of the Tri-M Honor Society, and we are really excited about some of the upcoming events that we're planning. We're hoping to get more of the community involved so that people know about Tri-M, and as this is our first year, we're still trying to get our feet and figure out where we're going, but hopefully we'll get those figured out by the end of the year. Soon. Very soon.
So do you have any events planned at this moment?
We have our spring concert, which is May 7th. It's a canned food drive.
Okay.
And then we've been talking about doing a demo kind of day for maybe grades 3 through 6 near the end of the year at Lakewood with our students that are in Tri-M and play the instruments for the kids. And kind of figuring out things maybe for next year, things to do maybe on a monthly basis.
What do you need to do to qualify to be a member?
You have your competency grade for music classes have to be a 3.5, and your other in your other academic courses have to be a 2.5. You have to be enrolled in a music ensemble class for at least half a semester of the year. And just want to be able to be out and play. Is that so everybody knows who look for in the community? We'll start here.
So hi, my name is Austin Hastings. I am a first-year inductee to Triumph Honor Society. I do a lot here around the school, and that's me in a nutshell. I play alto saxophone and bari saxophone on the side sometimes.
My name is Jenna Doucette. I'm an active member of the school. I'm a first-year inductee. And I primarily play the tuba.
So what else do you play?
Everything else.
Yeah, I was just say primarily, because I saw like 3 instruments sitting there that day. We talked about that.
Yeah.
Did I see a trumpet?
I play the trombone, the euphonium. I picked up the trumpet, but didn't. I play the clarinet. I just picked them all up.
What do you want to do someday?
Nothing with band.
It's for relaxation and recreation.
I heard you might be a music teacher someday.
No, it's
Oh,
not.
okay.
It's not.
I just heard that.
Excellent teacher, Amy.
And then, I'm Mrs. Norton. I'm here.
She plays everything.
I'm also here. I'm the vice president. I play trumpet and euphonium. I'm a senior, and yeah, that's about it.
I'm Victoria. I am the president. I am a soprano alto in chorus, and I'm involved in the drama club here at Spears.
I'm Laura. I am the historian, and I'm a senior.
Don't look at me, I'm gonna cry.
I'm a soprano in chorus, and I do drama as well.
Okay, my name's Hannah. I'm an alto. I'm the secretary for Tri-Am. I do not play any musical instruments, but I sing, so, yeah.
I'm Rebecca, and part of the junior chapter, and I play the flute. I'm Claire, I'm part of the junior chapter, and I play the clarinet, and I'm learning the flute.
Right?
Congratulations.
Thank you for starting.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you all for being charter members.
Okay, the next one is Distance and Imagination.
We have a lot of teams here. So there are 5 different teams. I guess you guys want to start with Daisy Bronson? Come right up here. This is Daisy Bronson, the first year. Daisy Bronson is head of teams. The middle level DI teams. And this team made it to globals, right?
Yeah.
So they made it to states, and then they made it to globals. So they were number 2, you guys, right? In the state. Good job. Do you want to tell them a little bit about what your challenge was?
If you're going to speak, you got to
Our challenge was to choose a need in the community and figure out a way to help that need, and then we had to make a performance about how we helped that need. We chose to raise money for the Ronald McDonald House charities through 2 bake sales, and we raised a total of $700.
You guys, maybe just say your names. Great.
My name is Zachary, and I've been doing DI for 3 years.
My name's Elise. I've been doing DI for 2 years. My name's Claire. I've been doing DI for 4 years. My name's Rebecca. I've been doing DI for 4 years.
And I'm Erin Hennessy. I'm their manager, and I've been doing DI for 4 years. And I'm very proud of this team because they received the Da Vinci Award at their regional tournament, and that's one award given out throughout the state, and it shows that they took risks and were very, they had great teamwork, and just a bunch of other things that I forget. But anyways, I was very proud that they received that. Very prestigious.
Okay, then we had another middle level team that was actually part of the Lake Race, so that's 5th and 6th graders. Not everybody's here, but whoever is there, you guys go right up there. And this team, actually, some of the kids have done DI, but this is a new team together this year, and this team also made it to locals. So you guys maybe share what your challenge was and what your names are and how long you've been doing DI.
So our challenge was, like they did, a community need, and we decided to do a community garden so people can come and take fruits and veggies home so they can stay healthy and get food. My name is Brody, and this is my first year doing DI.
My name is Jasper, and this is my second year doing DI.
My name is Luke, and this is my 4th year doing DI. I am Maddox, and this is my 2nd year.
My name is Reese, and this is my 3rd year doing DI.
I'm Claire, and this is my 2nd year doing DI.
Where's your garden located?
We don't know about that yet.
You're looking for a
We're
space?
still trying to look for a space.
All right, great.
They're still reaching.
So if anyone has a space out there they want to do it.
Why did you do as an event to start getting the community involved in that?
So what we did was we did a canned food drive. We put a box in, for all the food donations in our office, and people with donations would come and put donations in the box without how many?
Over 100 cans of
Yeah.
It's direct to take home for people who can't get food to take home for the weekend so they can have food.
And we have tons of snacks at Lake Way for kids who need them now.
Yes.
They're hard work. Okay, and then the Maniacs have been a team for quite some time. You guys will know that.
So you already know the Maniacs from the last meeting, so we're not going to go through our whole spiel, but
Well, we're the Maniacs, and we go and we go to the river the 3rd Tuesday of each month, and we do that because when we first started, they were all lonely and they didn't have any friends. So what we did, we wanted to make them happier, and we went there. And now they know all of our names, and we know all of their names. And some people have passed away, but
we remember them.
yeah.
And then maybe say your name and how long you've been doing DI.
My name is Julian, and I've been doing DI for 5 years.
My name is Ella, and I've been doing DI for 5 years.
My name is Jaden, and I've been doing DI for 5 years.
My name is Martin, I've been doing DI for 5 years.
My name is Mason. I've been doing DI for 5 years. My name is Addie, and I've been doing DI for 5 years.
My name is Caroline, and I've been doing DI for 4 years. We've been a team for 5 years, and I think you're in the second.
Good job.
You guys want to go up?
All right, Sadie, you want to talk to the group? You guys help her out as we go, okay? Tell them who we are. We are the Weird Sound Statues, and we have to choose a community need and support it. So we chose the Littleton Dog Park, and we are helping we helped raise money for it.
How did you guys raise money for the park?
Well, we had a
What did it take to make your dog party happen?
We had teamwork.
We had
We had to go to each classroom and tell them when it was, and we sent invitations home, and then we sent letters that, and a lot of kids thought that you brought your dogs to the party,
Did you have any community partners help you?
Yeah.
Who helped you guys?
Littleton Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
Our school nerd.
Who's a big help for us getting donations of food?
Chris.
Mr. Wilkins? Yeah. So these kiddos have been working together for 2 years, supporting the dog park committee, their place-based service learning project. And when you are going to need an organizer for a super kickin' party, these are going to be the kids you're going to want to go to. They know how to make flyers, they know how to communicate and make sure that we're not confusing dates with other activities going on in the district. They know how important everyone's time is. They know how to work a money box, sell concessions, and to take part in something that's really important in their community. So I couldn't be any more proud of them. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
My name's Sadie, and I've been doing DI for 2 years. My name's Cameron, I've been doing DI for 2 years. My name's Cameron, I've been doing DI 2 years. My name's Eli, and I've been doing DI for 2 years. My name's Ariana, and I've been doing DI for 2 years.
And I'm Mrs. Donna McCusker, and I've been doing DI with these kiddos for 2 years.
This team came in, they made it to state, and then they came in third in the state.
Fourth.
Still in the whole state.
Thank you.
And then our youngest DI group, you guys can go ahead up. This group was awesome, and this is their first year for most of them. Everybody actually, isn't it? First year for everybody on this team. And they did great at the tournament. They were very sad they didn't make it to states, but they should not be, because you guys were rock stars, right? Maybe you guys can tell a little bit about your challenge and your names?
So what we were doing is we wanted to fix Remick Park, so we raised a bunch of money during Oktoberfest for Remick Park. Our challenge was skateboarding.
It was also service-based, and we did it because Remick Park needs to be replaced. And that's what we wanted to show what we envisioned Remick Park to be. And Chris Wilkins was very helpful to us throughout the entire process. So you want to introduce yourselves?
My name is Evan, and this is my first year DI. My name is Hannah, and this is my first year doing DI. My name is Sophie, and I've been doing DI for 1 year. My name is Jackson, and I've been doing DI for 1 year. My name is Nolu, and this is my first time doing DI. My name is Ben, and this is my first time doing DI as well.
And at this point, they all want to do it again.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
They're gonna talk about the senior class trip, they can make
So I think we have one other recognition to do, and I believe it's Jeremy Brown, social studies.
He's not here right now, he couldn't make it. But he is a nominee for the Teacher of the Year for the state of New Hampshire, and he's moved on to the semifinals round.
Okay,
So that's important to know.
thank you.
There'll be a school visit in early June. They'll be meeting with parents and administration, students, peer teachers, so as part of their selection process, it's pretty exciting.
When did they announce?
They would announce it, I think, towards the end of June. I'm not sure. And it would be for the 2020 year.
Oh, okay. Oh,
We don't know who nominated, or is that all kept
It's all,
anonymous?
yeah, we sent information out, it was in the bulletin boards, it was there for families.
Okay.
It's exciting.
Mr. Hastings has his hand up. You're to recognize Mr. Hastings.
Hello, Mr. Hastings.
May I close the door?
Thank you. Any public input at this point in time? Hearing none, we'll move right along to a presentation by Matt Giraldo, Adaptive Sports on Skills That Pay the Bills.
Hi everyone, I'm Matt Jarrett. We're at,
This is Tom Shumlin. He's the new executive director for Adaptive.
So I'm Matt Jarrett. I'm the program director and rec therapist with Adaptive Sports Partners of the North Country. You guys want to pass it down? Just a quick little handout about what our program's about. So for this year, I've been meeting once a week on Monday afternoons with 8 students in the special ed department, working on our transition program called Skills That Pay the Bills. So we provide recreation therapy services for these students. Recreation therapy is similar to occupational and physical therapy. It's an allied health profession, but we focus more on those social aspects that students need for those soft skills when entering the workforce. So communication, interacting with their peers, just kind of anything that they might not be getting from other programs in the area. So we work a lot with more recreational-based activities, so it's more inherently enjoyable for them. So we've done a scavenger hunt in the community where the kids were given tasks and they had to work together to find out where in the community that certain object was. And once they found it, they had to write it down and write what they could do there. So that one was based primarily on learning what's in the community and what they can do there with their peers, co-workers, anything for enjoyment, like once they leave work. Because understanding that work-life balance is important for them, especially if they don't enter the workforce right out of high school. So it's really trying to prepare them for what happens next, whether they're going on to higher education or they're going to the workforce, or if it takes them a little while to get to either one of those. What can they do in the meantime to kind of keep themselves active and enjoy life? So each session we bring in the Skills That Pay the Bills board, and we have a couple words that we put on the top that are our main theme for the day. So that's how we kind of front load the activity, so the students kind of know what we're working with these activities, that sometimes they get a little lost in what actually we're working on, because that's hopefully what we're trying to do, is they're enjoying it so much that they're kind of getting wrapped up in it and just working on being together with their peers. So this kind of helps keep us on track. So we're starting off with that front-loading activity, and then at the end we're debriefing, we go over the words, and all the students get a chance to pick other words that they think that we also worked on through that day. So this is the last one we worked on. We played Family Feud with the students, and it was all based on kind of social interactions, so what's appropriate while you're at work, what's appropriate with your peers, and that kind of blurred line about when your peers and coworkers are kind of intermingling. How do we handle those situations? So Family Feud was designed to kind of answer those questions. So we mainly were talking about positivity, manners, safety, listening, and the students kind of worked on some of the things that they thought were appropriate for that task. Do you guys have any questions?
Are you working with all levels of high school, freshmen through seniors?
Yep.
Okay, so it's open to, it's not just 11th and 12th graders, you might be moving on?
No, so I met with Barb Chase at the beginning of the year, and we picked 8 students that we thought would be appropriate for this program. We met kind of myself, and Barb, and then the student and their parent, and we did a couple of kind of just interview questions to kind of get to know them a little bit better, then some assessments so we could kind of keep track of their progress going throughout the season.
And how often do you meet?
We meet every other Monday from 2 to 4, so during their task time.
Oh, okay.
Littleton is a pilot program, then. This is
Yep.
the first year.
Yep.
Do you want to talk about
Yep, so this is a pilot program, so we just offer this free of charge, just so it's something new for our program as well. I've been at Adaptive for a little over a year and a half now, so they're building their rec therapy program, so we're introducing these to schools. Littleton was kind of the first ones to hop on board, so thank you guys so much for that. And now we're moving down to Lakeway, so this, coming up in May, we're meeting for the first time with 8 Lakeway students, 5th and 6th graders. And instead of skills that pay the bills, it's more focusing on the skills that make a good friend. So we're really trying to hammer home those social skills again. So starting off young, so they're building these skills so they can keep on growing through high school. So hopefully they broaden their peer group while they're in high school, and then even broader when they get out of high school.
Do you see this being able to include more students? Or was there a reason it was just 8?
8, because it's right now it's just myself,
Okay.
and I think 8 kind of gives us that right number that we can still do a couple different ways we can break up the groups, but I can see a couple more, just depending on how the students are.
Right?
That's great. Yeah.
It's been a really good program for the students.
Good. And they're responding well. They're really
Yeah.
positive about it. They want to come back next year.
Yeah, they've all been pretty positive. We have a couple students that have been a little hesitant, but depending on the activity, we're able to kind of bring them in, and it's been great to see. We had one student that kind of stays on the outskirts during most of our programs, but we did some mock job interviews, and that kind of sunk him in. I was surprised that it was that activity that brought him in there, and he was incredibly engaged during the interview and asked follow-up questions, and then once we were done the interview, we just kind of naturally went to the group and continued the discussion with the other group members there, so that was kind of great to see. So our activities kind of range all over the place, from the scavenger hunt to mock job interviews, Family Feud. We've done a life-size Angry Birds for anger management strategies. That was a kind of popular one because they got to they're broken off to 2 teams. They got to set up kind of obstacle courses that the other students had to knock down, and then kind of talk about anger management strategies. They had to name a strategy before they could get their bird back, and then as they're throwing it, they're asked kind of, what are some things that make you angry, and what can we do about that? So it's kind of working on that, as well as knocking stuff over.
At Lakeway, would it be, what age group would you be?
5th and 6th grade.
Just the older?
For right now, that's the pilot program, but we're open to younger. You can never start social skills too young.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for doing it. Thanks for doing
Higher social skills.
If you don't want to.
When?
You can, it's.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. You know, it's great. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, next thing on the agenda is the approval of minutes for the April 1st school board meeting. motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Any errors or omissions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Manifests are probably down by,
I've got it.
you've got them, okay. Treasurer's report. Gary.
Okay, you should have the treasurer's report on your computer or in your hands, one or the other. There's really nothing outstanding that really hits the eye. Okay, everything balances out perfectly, as you can see. And that's about it. I mean, you can see the two balance, and that's what counts. And that's it. Unless you have some questions.
Are you okay?
I'm good.
Okay, thanks, George.
Sooner or later, we should be getting some more Keno, I would think. It's, you know, at least a quarter of the year, so we should be getting some pretty soon, I would think.
Always like the extra revenue.
What's that?
Always like the extra revenue.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, infrastructure grant.
Structure. As reported last time, we had actually received the state funds for the Academy building, the radios, the Lakeway exterior doors, and the Lakeway emergency egress projects. Since then, the security cameras project has been completed. You have the affidavits with you. It came in about $700 under total budget, which is okay. So we're not out of pocket anything beyond what you had expected.
Thank you.
I also left you a couple of some interim reports. Working with these towards the latter part of last week, which is why they're dated April 10 on the quick analysis sheet, but the thick report with all the details was just done this afternoon, so there are some differences between the two. It's simply a matter of timing. And nothing jumped out in either report at this point. Everything is what we've been seeing all along. We do know that special ed programs are greater than last year. Again, we've been seeing that since probably October. We did not have the adult ed program last year, so of course that's all variance year to year. And the majority of the variance in operations is a combination of fuel, which last year we did very well and this year not so well, so it's a double whack. And the infrastructure projects are also in there. All in all, it's as we expected. The other piece is you had a hearing earlier regarding the grant for LEAD. Sorry.
Yeah, wait.
I wonder if you care to take a vote at this point to decide if you're going to accept the grant and appropriate those funds for the project.
Make a motion to accept grant, United Way's grant, one-time grant of $6,133 to be used for drug and alcohol education programs throughout the district. Is that how it's going to be distributed, Steve?
Mainly at the elementary. I know Jennifer, she could speak to this too, would like to have some of that done up here if possible, especially at the middle school.
Some of it's the training as the police officer coming in
Yeah.
and knowing the limitations of their resources right now, so it doesn't look like it's possible for the coming year.
Yeah.
So we'll say throughout the district then?
Just in case it does come up to middle school.
Yeah, that's fine.
That grant is supposed to last till June of 2020.
Yeah.
I heard a motion, do I hear a second?
Second.
Any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes,
update?
If I feel everybody look at Dale.
No, it's fine. We're on schedule to start Monday, as requested by the board at the last meeting. I reached out to 3 additional vendors, one of which did not return the call. One did and thanked us but didn't have time. And the third visited Walk Lake Way and said there was no way he would be able to complete it by the end of April vacation. So we went back to our original solid bid that we have, that the work will start Monday. And then the testing will follow as soon as it's completed, but we won't have an exact date until we know how many days it takes them to replace it next week.
Okay. Does that retesting have to be done within a certain window after?
No, the only restriction is the water has to run for 30 minutes after the faucet's tested, and then it has to be stagnant for 1 to 2 days before they can test.
So those faucets that are being fixed will be run for 30 minutes, and then they'll say, do not open again until.
Correct. Well, it has to just sit for 2 days, and then they can use them on a regular basis thereafter. It just has to sit for 1 to 2 days after the 30 minutes of runtime.
And that's when the company does the testing again?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, community update, cost of education.
Okay, we have our first, it's a really planning meeting for that coming up Thursday at 4:30, SAU office. I don't know if Patty has yet, but she will notice it so that the board can attend as they're able and wish to. This is a response to a lot of work that was done by Mel Brooks. He wrote a number of articles in the newspaper, appeared at the Liberty session, certainly before all that happened. Began some discussions with us a little bit about our cost per pupil. You know, I think asked a very legitimate question, why is it so much higher than the state average? It is significantly higher than the state average, as we pointed out during the Liberty session and other meetings. It is going down. We've got a $1,000 swing just in the last year, with the average cost per pupil in the state going up over $500 per pupil, and ours going down by over $500 per pupil. So that trend has been in place at least for the last couple of years, as we've reduced our budget year after year, and typically the other districts in the state, the cost per pupil has gone up. So the gap is there, and I know as we go forward, we'll certainly be looking at a number of items that we do here that contribute to that. Probably some items that frankly contribute to the cost of pupil at the same time bring in lots of money to the district, that being specifically the CTE programs, some of our special services programs as well. So those, I think that'll be the part of the task, will be to look at it a little bit different. There's 6 other schools that Mr. Brooks' study has compared us to. They're similar sized schools, or K-12 schools, but there are some differences also that might explain some of the differences there. So first meeting will be to, I guess, to set the goals for what the study group wishes to accomplish, and look at how best to address the many questions that have come up through our budget. Probably a good opportunity, because we've had lots of questions about the budget over the past few years, and certainly the community, as we've said often, it's been very good to the schools, but we need to make sure that we're staying on top of things, managing the budget well, and most of all, providing transparency in our budget and how those dollars are spent. So I certainly look forward to that progress, or that process, and going forward.
Thank you. Next item is school calendar revision due to weather conditions.
Well, I've made that call, so I haven't made the call, the machine's made the call. I guess I make the call to Dale, who tells the machine to make the call, but we've had that a few times this year. 3 days where we've lost the entire day, and I believe 4 where we've lost a part of a day, in this case late arrivals. We haven't had to have any early dismissals this year, which is unfortunate, to say the least. Those are much more problematic than the late arrivals, certainly. In the report I sent you and in the folder, there is a workup or a description. Thank you to Jennifer. She did the heavy lifting on that, did the math on that, but the length of the school year description showing the required minutes, the minutes that we've accrued this year, even with the lost time. And again, I think as we've done in the past, this is about the time of year where we take a look at what the end of the year is going to look like, if we're going to ask students to make up those days. And of course, I guess that's really the main decision that needs to be made. Teacher contracts are contracted by days, so those days are made up by teachers, but how we intend to end the school year regarding students is, I hope we don't have any more. I hope we can go ahead and make this call now and people can start to plan and get on with their lives as the end of the school year approaches.
So I guess reading this report that students will get out on time.
We could do that. If we do what we've done in the past, they're consistent with the last 2 years, we wouldn't change the last day of school for students, if that's the desire of the board.
Any comments from the board, please? No? Good. So okay with it? Yep. Okay with it?
Okay.
All right.
Last day of school for students will be as on the per the calendar then, no makeup days? Okay. That'll be good, I'm sure that. Well, our seniors are like, we don't care. I mean, but there's the underclassmen are clapping back. The seniors are like, who cares?
Okay. Tell me no one, special ed.
So enrollment for April is fairly consistent with the last couple months. Hopefully it's not going to continue to increase, but we're at 141 identified students as of now. Deb Hansen is collecting those who are interested in participating in the extended school year program as employees. She's collecting their letters of interest, I guess, and we'll be making a decision, hopefully to come to the first meeting in May for the special ed extended school year program. And it'll be run very similar to last year, and it'll be the month of July, Monday through Thursdays. And it staggers the start and end times by building, so Lakeways from 8:30 to 11:30. Middle high school is 8 to 11, and preschool is 9 to noon.
9 to noon?
Yeah.
Preschool?
Preschool. And then I attached a couple memos for your reading pleasure. I don't know if you have any questions or if you even understand any of it, but each year the state of New Hampshire sends out the parent involvement surveys to all identified students. Well, they give us the envelopes to address and we send them out. And, you know, our return rate has generally been pretty low. It's not mandatory that parents do it, but, and this year it looks like they did it a little bit differently. They actually broken it up throughout the state, so if you're in a certain cohort, you send them out this year. So hopefully, since we're sending them out this year, we won't have to send them out next year. And then I attached the indicator 12 compliance for early transitions, and we were 100% compliance on that. And I don't know if you have any other questions regarding this.
Thank you. So Jennifer.
Okay, we're going to start with, I think, the seniors talking about their class trip and hoping that you approve their trip. I've got the itinerary. They'll be hopefully, going to New York City May 16th for 2 nights, returning the 18th. district's been there many years in the past. So, go ahead, gentlemen.
Good evening, my name is Christian.
I'm Will.
And so I'm the class secretary, and we're hoping that you'll let us go on this class trip. So basically, we're going to New York City and Jersey Shore for 3 days and 2 nights. We're going to be doing stuff like going to Times Square, watching a Broadway show, going to the 9/11 Memorial, looking at the Statue of Liberty, and so on.
There's 42 students going, 5 chaperones. We will not be staying in the city. We will be staying outside in New Jersey.
Everyone who wanted to go on the trip was accounted for with the class money if they couldn't afford it. So no one that wanted to go is not going to be able to go.
So right now, everyone's going?
Yeah.
Who wishes to go? Some don't want to go.
Oh,
I think we have around 55 students and 42 are going, so.
So 42 or 50 dollars.
Something
This is a good idea.
Pretty good.
It is, was
It's a really good, it's a great idea. A highlight is awesome. You guys are gonna love it.
So I'm not sure of process, whether you just approve the trip.
So for the chaperones, teachers, parents, what?
Yes, so it's going to be both our class advisors, Nurse Roberts and Mr. Babin, along with Mr. Smith, Mr. Marks, and Mrs. Pollard, who are the two, Mr. Smith and Mrs. Pollard are the junior class advisors.
Need a motion to approve this trip? Does somebody have
Parents have any objections?
So many, we don't have time. Who's Mr. Marks?
It's a social study.
Oh, this is when they kind of have. No, it's actually a very,
It is.
exciting trip.
Very much so.
Thank you.
Good job.
This class is using the same tour guides that we use, travel agency for a number of years.
Take any formal action to approve that?
Carrie, take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the class trip, junior class trip.
Okay, do I hear a second? Second. Any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thanks, Thanks for being patient and waiting.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. So enrollment, 349, keeps going up and down. We actually had a couple more students looking to come to school in the last quarter, just this past week. Above the notch.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
How does that go back and forth like that? Your kids go, they quit for a while, then they come back for a while.
A lot of the
quit for a while.
times it's
How's that
moving,
work?
a lot of times it's moving, some shifting from homeschooling back to the day, to public school or from public school to homeschooling, a lot of it's just transition. We get a lot of transitional families. Could be placement, they're placed here.
Transition, meaning they just kind of.
Move around a lot, apartment to apartment, could be that. Yeah. Or it's another part of our moving demographics. Makes it a little bit of a moving target sometimes. 4 weeks left for above the notch.
I can talk. So we're coming down to the last few weeks, so we have this week, and then we have vacation. And when they come back, they're going to be in presentation mode. So the last 3 weeks have been scheduled out for all of presentations to take place for all of their projects and all of their classes through the project-based learning format that we're using at Above the Notch. So we put some parameters on them this time to get them all in one spot before April break. So that's our goal. So if you're welcome to come in. If you let me know, I can let you know who's presenting when. But most of the classes are presenting from 3 to 8 o'clock, Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays for the 3 weeks in May for their classwork. So, and then graduation has been scheduled for May 30th, 6 p.m., Littleton High School gym. Frank Edelblut, the commissioner, is the keynote speaker for that graduation. It'll be your first graduation of the Above the Notch Community School here in Littleton. So I have for Above the Notch. Come back to grants.
We've started our second round of interviews for guidance counselor, school counselor. We'll be looking at our French opening this week with our committee, the French applicants. Our vending machine company is sold their business, going out of business, so we're looking at transitioning and having some support from the Abbey Group and the managers of that machines. I don't know how that works, but we've been kind of trying to figure that out. They're happy to donate the machines to us, which is nice. This, at the end of Q3, we kind of got ahead a little bit so that the students and families were aware of the academic needs of their students. We sent summer school letters out to give them a heads up that we need to be looking forward to this fourth quarter being a strong quarter, so summer school does not become your future opportunity. So we've had some good feedback from families. Some were kind of surprised, but it's nice to get it out early so that it's not a reaction 2 days before, when grades close. Yalta, the Week of Hope, we started that with James Origo, speaker. You may have seen it up on our Facebook page. The Yalta group created a week of activities, and the students facilitated them, and we had a guest speaker come in and talk about hope. It was very well received by our school community. National Honor Society hosted their first clothing giveaway on April 6th. Many families filled bags and boxes of clothes. I got some thank you notes from families. It was a great community service project. On March 29th, Professional Development Day, Melanie, we talked a lot about reflecting on our summative assessments and competencies, and worked with Karen Hess. Our LHS players, if you had the opportunity, and I know several of you did, to see the performance of Hamlet Here's a Who, was a lot of fun this past week. We worked on our reassessment procedures, something we got from the Family Community Collaborative, one of them two ago. Really, we're hoping to streamline that so we have some consistent practices. So teachers, Melanie and I, working with LMU Howard, looked at some reassessment practices across other schools and looking to pilot that this quarter. So it's been shared with students and will be shared as summatives come up with our shared with teachers, will be shared with students as they have the opportunities to reassess. The Tri-M, you heard from them. Youth and Government students, actually, I should have said that when Will Adams was here, attended their annual event where they take over New Hampshire Senate and present bills. Joe DePalma received the award, the Statesman Award, which is given in honor of our own Pierre Lafitte. So a lot of congratulations for that. And Ben and Dan have done a good job supporting those students in their Youth and Government adventure. Littleton scholarship applications are due tomorrow. Students have been reminded. So the Littleton scholarships allow it's kind of that gateway application that's fed out to the $275,000 worth of scholarships. So those organizations, we receive that information from our students. Those are due the 16th. We finish all our SAT assessments. April 9th is our makeup day. And this week, we've started the process for registering for courses for next year. We're ahead of where we've been in the past. We'll become more efficient as we continue to streamline our practice. So students, I've included links to the high school program of study and the Daisy Bronson course offerings, and I sent that out in an email to families so they can support their students too in their course selections. This past month, ETS, the Educational Talent Search, took middle schoolers on a school visit to Northern Vermont University in Linden. Kids come back excited to go to college, which is great. Sophomores visited White Mountain Community College for the College Access Convention. Our task team's continuing to collaborate and figure out the best approaches to supporting our students 7 through 12. Middle school will see a little bit of a different approach next year, as we recognize they need more transitional support than that we can take the opportunity during that time to provide. We've completed the youth risk behavior on March 20th, so those results may be in before. I don't know, it took them a year, I think, to give us the last time we assessed results. So hopeful that turnaround is a little quicker for usable data. We did a successful tabletop exercise with Homeland Security on March 29th. We partnered with the PD, the fire department, Public Works, the Sheriff's Department, Grafton County Dispatch, to really look at that evacuation site, All Saints, and what would that procedure look like if for some reason there was an event that took place here that we needed to do reunification with families at an off-site location. And perfect. Let's do the grants update.
So I put the grants update in her report. I'll go over it in a little more detail for you. So based on the tabletop that we did on the 29th, we had the opportunity to work with the chief of police and the town. So we are going to embark on a little journey here. We're going to do a grant. It's called the COPS grant. It's for School Violence Prevention Program. Lori LeDuc and I spent last week some time together in setting up all the grant forms for Littleton Police Department. You have to apply under Federal Assistance Program under the grants.gov. Once we've done the paperwork to that, which we did, I've been opened up and now have a username and password in COPS under the Littleton Police Department. So with Andrew, he's helped us through some of that process so that we can work together as a team on this grant. This grant is going to be used for us to update all of our door security systems. So we can't exceed this grant as a 2-year grant. And we met a week ago, Dale, Al, Greg, and I, and the chief of police, we walked through to see where some holes were in this building for this grant. It's a 2-year grant, doesn't exceed $500,000. It must be collaborative with the police department, and they will be doing trainings. So there'll be an hour's training in there. There will be orientation for all the new officers to come into the buildings in the district, the whole district, and get a feel of where everything is, how to maneuver around in the buildings. So that's included in this grant. The film for the out windows, there's a film that you guys use. That's being included in this grant. And the fob system. And what else did they want? We've looked at Mutual Link with Dale a little bit for updates on that. Metal detector was something that the chief would like because if you have events, it's portable. It's a portable metal detector, so if you have large events in the gym and whatnot, then if they need to, they can pull that out and use that. So that's the grant we're working on. That grant goes in May 31st. Is the deadline on that grant. Other grants, submitted the grant for $675,000. It was a Title IV-B 21st Century grant. Steve Millis received an email back from them saying that we wouldn't qualify. I didn't like that answer, so I reached back out to Fred Bramante, who is the national, he's the executive director to the National Board of Competency-Based Education, and is an advocate for competency-based education in the state of New Hampshire, and I'm working with him and Frank Blue to have another look at what we want to use that grant for, because it's exactly what the state of New Hampshire is asking us to do, to think outside of the box and incorporate our middle school, our 7th, 8th, 9th graders into doing things outside of the building in the classroom in an organized format. So that's what the grant was for. It was a 5-year grant, so we are getting a look at it again with their help. I submitted the David B. Brooks Music Foundation grant for $7,500 to help the music program. Specifically, she wanted band equipment, so to update that so that everyone that wants to be a percussion can play percussion. So that was submitted on Friday for that grant. I assisted the CT STEM in a grant under Perkins that would give us an opportunity for a new program in the fall, and that was for $45,000.
What kind of program is that?
It's called Bike Tech. I believe that would be under his.
What's it called?
Bike Tech. For students that want to get into engineering or STEM or any of those programs to be able to assemble bicycles. We did some research in the local area when we did the grant to see if there was a need. There is a need because a lot of your resorts are now into mountain biking. So we did some research for it to see if there was a workforce behind it, because Perkins is more about workforce. And there is in this area, so that's what we did. And it also includes the regional schools. So there's a lot of opportunity with that grant. So we've done that grant. That's already been submitted. And then lastly, I continue to work with the state of New Hampshire for the adult ed, which is the part of the Above the Notch Community School. That's where the funding comes for that grant. So I've also applied, I was allowed to apply, so I did, for some summer school for ATN, so students can do ELOs this summer, and also obtain credit with that. So those grant numbers will come out at the end of May, so I will update you when those numbers come through.
The last community collaborative that we had was March 21st, and a couple parents came in. We did a walkabout, I guess, around this main floor to kind of reflect on what we see, what's there, and how we might have different resources available in the spaces that they might be more used. So moving some bulletin boards, having potentially some guidance information more in the lobby when families come in for public events. We'll be working on that after doing a walkthrough with students as well. Granite State Challenge, we beat Hanover High School on March 30th, and we'll compete in the semifinals against Manchester. I think it's the 27th this month. It's up there. And I've got upcoming events on the last page. You can check those out. The career fairs, parent nights. Grade school cleanups May 5th. Lowe's is a great partner, providing a lot of the resources we need to kind of keep our space up to date and clean. Student Council's doing it on a Sunday. Kind of made me a little nervous, but I'm assured.
We decided to do it on a Sunday because about half the people on Student Council would not be able to go on the only Saturday event available to do it. So about half the workforce in Student Council would be able to go anyways. So we decided
Sunday's
to send it on Sunday.
So we're awake, ready to go. April 30th, White Mountain Community College is doing a running start and early college student and parent information night. 9th graders through juniors will be invited. They'll get invitations in the mail. I'm pretty excited about that. And junior prom's May 11th at Ogontz. Is it May 11th? Thank you.
They just left there.
All right.
Okay. Just Quickly, CTC and Industry Post-Secondary Connections, juniors and seniors did attend Weymouth Community College Open House last Friday. You heard about the career fair scheduled for April 30th at Brent Woods. Students in the health science program will be taking their LNA exams on May 15th. The LNA ceremony is scheduled for May 8th. That's not a typo. When you complete the class, you're eligible for a certificate of completion. They receive that, and then of course they have to test. So they also have to pass the test on the 15th. But that certificate deems them eligible to take an exam. I had the same question. Teacher ed field trip to Plymouth is scheduled for May 6th, tentatively. But more importantly, we've engaged in conversations to develop an articulation agreement with Plymouth. Teacher, if a student completed coursework in teacher ed, they would be allotted some credit from Plymouth. So that's in the works. So that's exciting to do that. Just program development, professional development. We're very involved in now finalizing our plans for summer camps, and they would be for middle school students from the area. We'll be hosting Region 3 meeting, a CTC meeting, just to let you know that we do meet 4 times a year. Those involved from our center as well as Paradise Center in Wakefield. And just to let you know, it's not on here, but sophomores and juniors will be visiting their programs on the 17th, those who are interested, after a conversation today about programs for next year. And then last on the list is capital purchases. We've talked about these purchases in facilities committees, but obviously I need your approval. We have a shop vehicle lift that when it was installed in 2010, it was installed too close to an expansion joint. An expansion joint are those cracks in the concrete floor that you can see in really any building. It should be approximately 4 inches from that expansion joint. This one was installed too close, so a crack has developed. So it's recommended by the company that inspects our lifts that we move that lift. The process of moving that lift may be 4 inches. So it's not a huge job, but the estimate they've given us is $1,280. So I recommend that we spend capital purchases for that fix. That will, if you approve that, it will happen this summer. So there's no rush. It's not dangerous, but it eventually needs to be moved. And also we have a parts washer that needs to be replaced. The parts washer we have is old. It came with the new building, so it was purchased in the early 2000s or late 90s. It just needs to be replaced. So those 2 purchases total of $2,574. And then at some point, we're not allowed to offer welding as a CTC course because they do it at the region. That's one of the agreements of Region 3. We kind of offer the same course. But we have a number of students who have an interest in welding. Welding is part of our auto curriculum. What we do now is set up really portable booths. We'd like to at some time create maybe 3 or 4 booths that are a little safer. They exhaust better, but with the understanding that we can never offer, unless the regional ceases to offer that program, we can offer a 2-year program. We do have a number of students who enjoy welding, so we've consulted with Weymouth Community College just to get some estimates of what that may cost. Very popular class, right? So that's, we're working on it. I just want to give you a heads up that may be coming forward. And then, talking about the DOE fund, it's an innovation grant. What happens, the commissioner has permission to take 15% off the top of all Perkins funds to the state, that he could determine what he wants to do with it. So this money was originally going to the schools. He wanted to set up a special fund for innovation. So these grants are available. We wrote this grant on the Bike Tech program, which is really a bike repair program. Someone had brought it to my attention earlier in the year. They call it Bike in a Box, which in a way it's true. Everything is, you get a brand new bike and your job for the year is to assemble this bike. And then the students get to keep the bike. The closest program locally is in Lyndonville, so we went to see this program. Highly enrolled, very popular. So we wrote this grant. This is really a pre-tech grant, so we could offer even, have 10 through 12, could even be a freshman. Really the goal is of this program is to provide a workforce if needed, if the student wanted to go straight into that field, because there is a need. And also is another, I think, a major goal if you have young students doing this. We've had a difficult time trying to attract students into the manufacturing world. Even though we have some great equipment, we have definitely cooperation from industry. It might lead to students becoming more interested in that field. Certainly, part of the grant that I mentioned was non-trad, which could be girls entering the manufacturing world, or STEM courses, very few, statewide, very few here. I think that may level the field a little bit. So you don't have to accept anything at this stage because we haven't been accepted. But if we are accepted, I'd come back and ask for your permission, of course, for this grant. It's a $45,000 grant. $35,000 is for the stations. You have to set up stations and equipment for bike repair. That would be ours to keep. Right now, if we do receive the grant, we'll be piloting a block a day, and the other $10,000 would be for salary or contracted service for the instructor. So that's where we are now. Not even sure we're going to be approved, but I thought I would just bring it to your attention. The nice thing about it, I've had some great correspondence in the local areas. There's a lot of money. Northern Borders project, there's a ton of money available that you can see a huge expansion here in terms of the trail system for mountain bikes. We've had some nice letters of support from the Northern Forest Center. I've had a nice letter of support from actually a former graduate, Taylor Caswell, who's the commissioner now of the Business and Economic Affairs. Gave us a very strong letter of support. So there's a lot of, something I didn't know of the very active community regarding the trail system, and it seems to be growing. Seems to be a lot of money out there for tourism and attracting bikers to the area. So it might be just an excellent time to get involved. So I will definitely keep you updated. Thank you.
All right. Next facilities meeting is May 3rd, 7:30 at the SAU. This was a pretty scarce report, just kind of updating you what's going to happen next week around the buildings, the spring cleanup, working on additional quotes for the parking lot at Lakeway to be graded and with craters filled. Up here would be
Sorry to interrupt, but somebody called an ambulance. There's ambulance people here. 19-year-old kid. I didn't know if you don't have kids in here now, but
about tomorrow. Thank you, Sean. The academy still working with the vendor on whether or not they can get the blinds installed next week. They're still not in stock as of Friday for Mr. Marks's room. The biggest thing that we were going to talk about tonight from my side was the data security plan, which Patty has shared with you. However, after speaking with Dr. Niles, we agreed that a 44-page document probably needed more than 2 or 3 days for you to review before you give it a first read. So we pushed it back until the next meeting, but I would like to commend the technology committee for vetting all of those sites that you see in there, for writing that report or that plan of 44 pages. It took over 3 months for the group of like 8 of us to do that. But Ann, did you have a question? Sorry.
I do.
Go ahead.
First of all, there's a new policy out. It's called Data Governance and Security, which we have not seen or adopted yet. So that should be coming up at our policy meeting, I hope tomorrow or Wednesday, whenever we have it, which addresses your procedure manual. So I think we should adopt the policy first, because it says here you don't have to provide it to no later than June 30th. So if we don't go through that plan until early June, I think we have plenty of time.
So I will be chatting at the policy committee meeting regarding that. The way that the House bill is written, it does not require the board to adopt a policy. It just requires the board to accept the plan. Now, if they're making changes, but since that original House bill was passed, it was just that we have to have a plan in place, that the board's aware of it, and that it's sent to the state in time.
I know you probably need a plan, but this is a priority policy, which just means it's federal and state. So we have to approve this plan, this priority policy.
Yeah, that's why I invited Dale Wednesday, so we can talk about that aspect of it as well.
And Dr. Niles also shared with me the consortium of school networking, COSN. They're pretty well known. They've done some state presentations. I believe they might have even gone to the law conference that was presented. They are, willing to take a look at our plan once completed, to sort of read through it, but they've been helping a lot of other school districts. But in addition, one of the things that they're trying to help school districts with is that once a school vets a website, whether it be google.com, then the whole state is covered. Like, we don't have to go back. Like, this is an ever-changing working document. So if we find a new website tomorrow that a teacher would like to use that requires them to sign in with a username and password, we then have to add that to our plan. We have to verify privacy and a terms of use. If they don't meet the state or federal regulations, then the staff is not technically allowed to use it based on the plan. So COSN is trying to take a lot of the manual looking up, copying and pasting work out of it for a lot of the school districts, and Steve shared a nice presentation with me from them. Other than that, I posed one question there regarding payroll management software. And the only reason why I would say that we probably have to go through here is because of the cost to integrate would exceed anything that we could do without board approval. We currently, as you all know, for all hourly employees, use paper timesheets. They're all manually filled out. I've talked to Debbie for probably the whole year as to roughly how much time. So just to give an estimate, it basically takes her 2 days every other week. So 16 hours a day, or 16 hours every 2 weeks times 26 weeks to process payroll, plus whatever her salary is. The Time Clock Plus software would integrate directly with Tyler Tech. It would require hourly associates to punch in and out on a time clock. But all the data that she has to currently manually enter would be right there in the system. It is the only software that's compatible with our current accounting software. So if we decide we want to go that route, or we can continue to do the way that it is, but with Debbie retiring, Matt and I both thought, with conversation with her, that if we were going to make a transition with a replacement, now might be the time. So we have received multiple quotes of what the integration would cost, and then what the yearly cost thereafter would be for the payroll to be electronic.
Do you know what percentage of employees clock in or would be eligible to clock in and out?
We estimated licenses of around 60. That would include all the paraprofessionals as well as all the custodians. And then any admin assistants, are they hourly? Yeah, so it was about 60 licenses that we calculated that we would need to do that. So we are, you know, from speaking or speaking with other tech directors, we are one of the few school districts left. There are a couple that don't have the funds to do electronic, but a lot of schools up here do currently use electronic timekeeping. It's 100% accurate, and you know, it's something I think we should switch to, but I'm just one person. So.
Yeah, I did. Dale mentioned the tech committee spent many hours on this, looking at it very carefully. I think that you know, so I think some school districts have chosen to write a few checks and pay the money and have somebody else do all the work, and not really know what this whole process is about. It's kind of like, well, this was passed by the legislature. We're just gonna do the minimum and hope for the best here. This is an extensive document. It took many hours. It's very much tailored to our needs. I guess what I like best about what has been done with this is that our own people on the tech committee understand this whole process. That's pretty important. When you start looking at making sure that our software is safe, making sure that we have a process in place if there's a breach. There's all kinds of things that can happen that, as we know, that led to this legislation. Again, legislation, as legislation tends to be, that had no means to pay for it or support it at the state level, but that's another day, another topic, right? But Dale, thank you for your work that you put into this, as well as the tech committee.
I have a question, Dan. What does indoor deep cleaning mean?
Areas that you don't have the opportunity to get to, whether it be to scrub and wax a floor again, you know, that you don't necessarily get in your daily cleaning.
Okay, we'll go on.
So, yeah. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, thanks. Okay. Is somebody reporting for Crystal Hill?
No, Eric's not here either.
Okay, so Melanie.
At Lakeway, our Title I special education team is continuing to review the RTI model. We're currently focusing on looking at a couple different assessment systems to gather more targeted data that I spoke about last month. And each grade level team has reviewed their competencies and indicators that they worked with this year and submitted their proposed modifications to be made for next year, and there are relatively few modifications. At the high school, as Janet mentioned, the school-wide reassessment and late work policy, actually it's just the reassessment policy. Procedure, let's change that. To assure consistency across courses has been distributed to all teachers and is being communicated to students this week and is being piloted this quarter so that we can make any tweaks necessary for the start of next year. And I included a link in my report to the procedure. And when you take a look at it, you'll see that it has it's 4 pages long. It has the procedure, it has our competency grade scale, and a explanation of formative and summative assessments, because that only summative assessments can be reassessed. It has a Crusader reassessment contract that must be initiated by the student. So it really puts all the emphasis on the students being the ones to initiate this process of taking ownership in their reassessment. And then the last page of that procedure is a flow chart that guides students through the whole process.
Melanie, will that be forwarded to parents? Because that's going to be dispersed, yeah.
We just did, what was it, Wednesdays.
Wednesday faculty meeting, it was rolled out.
Feedback, so yeah, that will go out. Right.
Professional development, our Lakeway UDL team last week participated in their first stage of instructional rounds on Tuesday. So we have our implementation specialist at our Lakeway team is the biggest UDL team that she works with. I believe there's 11 members down there. So they had the opportunity to, under the guidance of the implementation specialist, round to their different classrooms and observe the practices that were going on in each of those rooms. And then she led us through a debrief and kind of planning and goal setting meeting after that. And we received very positive feedback from all the teachers involved. And on the heels of their instructional rounds, the middle and high school team has put together a 3-part PD session for the teachers up here to kind of roll out what they've learned to the rest of the staff, and that will happen at the end of this year. And then, as Jen had mentioned, Karen has joined us on March 29th for the Staff Development Day. She's splitting her time between the elementary and the middle high school. In the morning, she was with the elementary school, and she helped teachers unpack the math practice standards and develop vertically aligned learning indicators for them, which will then be scaffolded up all the way through 12th grade. And in the afternoon, Karen, pretty much dedicated her time to what the teachers have already developed in terms of performance assessments and rubrics, answering questions, giving feedback, and on documents that they have already developed. So,
Okay, thank you. So committee reports are next. Personnel.
Anything at this time?
Don't have anything at this time. Facilities, Greg, do you have anything?
No, they went over the facilities and we have anything we want to bring up to go without.
Okay, we did give him a name, somebody about the Lakeway parking lot.
Okay.
So follow on. So policy committee is heavy into policy. So JICD, food disciplinary process. This is supposed to be the second read and adoption.
Good job reformatting this month.
Much easier to read.
And I just have like minor things, like commas, semicolon, a couple of places where there's an A right smushed up against, so nothing that affects the content or context that requires us to wait on something else. Yeah.
I have a few.
You do?
At this point. Yeah, I need some notes on reading this thing.
under the definitions, you know, it's got expulsion. Means a permanent denial of pupil attendance. Now, a lot of the words used in here is also expulsion, expel, which is basically the same thing, expulsion, expel. But I think under that A, I think it should say expulsion and or expulsion, because you see that word expelled a number of times through this. And just to have an idea of what it means, it should be added in there also, I think. So, even though they're basically the same thing, you see the term a lot. Does that make sense to anybody?
I think I know what you're saying.
Under the definition, it just says
Right.
expulsion.
Right, so.
But the term expelled is used,
Because it's a
Quite a bit.
grammatical tense, right?
Right.
It's being used as a,
yeah, I'm just
Right.
kind of thinking under a legal document, there is a slight difference between the two, but it's very slight. They basically mean the same thing.
right.
But a good lawyer could tear us apart on that, I think.
It's written by a lawyer, Ralph,
Yeah.
employed by the State School Board Association, so I hope they know what they're doing. Expulsion is a noun, expel is a verb.
Right.
It's simple, it's as simple as that.
Okay. That's one comment I got. Another one is under V, the V for 5. Yeah, and I just want to understand this. It says in-school suspension. The building principal or designee is authorized to issue in-school suspensions for up to 5 days. Now, up here under 4, it says, the superintendent may designate in writing a building principal, assistant principal, with the authority to suspend a student for a period not to exceed 10 days. Is there letters already in effect that allow your principals to expel students? Do they have letters directly from
Yeah.
you as a superintendent already?
Yeah, we do.
Not for expulsion, not for
Just
expulsion, just
not for
suspension.
expulsion.
For long-term suspension, out-of-school suspension. And Ralph, it's a legal document that I sign off on every year in August before school starts. Yeah, I'm sorry, for expulsion is a whole different thing, obviously.
Okay, so superintendent can expel, the superintendent may designate in writing a building principal, assistant principal, with his authority to suspend a student.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so that's, but there is a letter that's already in place for that, I
Yes.
just want to.
Yeah, there is. Ann and Kim looked at it
Okay.
last time we met as a policy committee.
And under number IX 9, IXA on page 9, okay, any school employee who has witnessed, who has informed information from the victim of an act of theft, destruction, or violence. And I'm wondering if it should be, or who has information from the victim or other witness. Because if you got a destruction, if a kid throws a rock through a window or destroys a window, or somebody sees it,
But it says who has witnessed or who has information from the victim. So
Right.
it's separated by or, so somebody who has witnessed or
any,
who has information from the victim.
okay, but any school employee
Right,
who has witnessed,
right.
or who has information from the victim, but, or other witness, I'm saying, it shouldn't, be- what if there's another witness out there, a parent or something,
It's
it's
not
not
a
a
school
school
employee.
employee?
Okay.
So this is just telling school employees they have to do this. This got nothing to do with other witnesses coming to a teacher and saying, hey, John just threw a rock through the window. It wasn't witnessed by a school employee,
Right,
and
because
there's no victim.
I think it's because it's under reporting. You're right, you're right, that there is something in that protocol, but I think it's because it's under reporting procedures which employees need to follow.
Okay.
So if you have a outside person, like a parent or the neighbor, saw Johnny threw a rock through the window, I would hope that that person would go to the principal and say, da-da-da-da-da, and then that person, the principal would have to
Okay,
investigate.
or a school employee, and then that
Right.
becomes responsible for school
Because this is
employee.
saying that the school employee has to do this, this is the policy they have to
okay.
follow.
Yep.
So would it be the same if a student came into a classroom and said they just saw someone vaping in the bathroom? Or they just saw someone vandalize somewhere, something somewhere else in the school? The same for a student? As for an adult outside who went and told the principal, would they be able to tell the teacher, or would they have to go to the principal?
But they would tell the teacher, they tell a school employee,
Tell them, yeah.
then the school employee has a legal requirement to notify.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean.
This is saying as an employee,
Okay.
they are obligated to follow this procedure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Good question.
Thanks.
Under the, that's it. That's all I got.
Thank you, Ralph. Good question.
Do I hear a motion to do the second read and adoption of this policy?
So moved.
Do you hear a second?
Second.
Any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, superintendent's report.
Okay, I just put one item here, primarily to talk about. We've already talked about a couple other things through the agenda. Did spend a couple of days in Concord this week, or last week, excuse me, Monday, Tuesday. Two very pleasant drives through the Notch early in the morning. And the second drive back through the Notch, the second day, was even more interesting on Tuesday. But actually I like driving through the Notch when it snows. It's kind of a nature, always beauty. But that aside, the Behavioral Health Conference, it was put on by the State School Superintendent Association, and they put on a number of staff development, professional development activities throughout the year that I've tried to attend pretty regularly. This one, what I really wanted to say about it was that, as I went to the different breakout sessions and I heard from the different speakers and I heard about the different things that people out there are doing or should be doing, and it's gratifying to know that we're doing many of those things, not all of them, and we haven't fully implemented everything, but Scarlett Lewis, to hear Scarlett Lewis talk about the Choose Love curriculum and how that came about and her work with that and how it's been endorsed by the governor and many educational and mental health agencies. It was nice to, again, have that validation, because that is a curriculum that we use and use from the very beginning or very early part of our socio-emotional learning program. And those who may not know it, she was a mother who lost a young son at Sandy Hook Elementary School some years ago. And she kind of took upon herself this crusade to start working with this area in one approach to decrease school violence. I think the other thing that resonated over and over again was again this idea that when we have school violence and things that have happened in terms of safety and security over the years, some of our reactions are to improve security, and those are good things to do, don't get me wrong. Improvements with safety measures to enter the building, to leave the building, our surveillance measures, our work with ALICE training, all these things are really important. But I think what's interesting is that when the governor's report came out over a year ago, one of the things that they really stressed in that report was relationships and adults knowing students and having strong social-emotional programs in place to support students. to make sure that students feel like they have a place to belong, and the people that at the school care about them, and that they're safe, not just physically, but emotionally safe as well. So that was again a recurring theme that I heard the other day. So one of the other sessions I went to was presented by a couple individuals who were here back in August that did our mental health first aid training. Those are individuals that are employed by the State Department of Education. Cassie Ackley was there doing her presentation as well. Another individual that we've had some work with, not as much as we would have liked, frankly, through the difficulty of her managing her schedule and the weather a couple of times and so on. But you know, I think that a lot of the work that we've done so far has set the groundwork for, I think, the progress that we've made. I asked Crystal the other day, so how are we doing with office referrals? We started off the year dramatically fewer office referrals. That's continued. I think that's important to note. The other item that keeps coming up again and again as we work with socio-emotional learning is restorative justice, and how important that. I mean, that is again is a shift in the way that we look at discipline, and we're in an awkward position here, because we just talked about in this policy about traditional discipline, suspension, in extreme cases expulsion. And those extreme cases of expulsions aren't going to change. You bring a gun, you're going to be expelled. You do certain things at school, by law you're going to have to go away. But how we treat suspensions is a little different. And whether we do in-school suspensions versus other interventions is a little bit different as you start looking at the restorative justice system. Doesn't mean that there aren't suspensions when you have restorative justice, but it means that actually I call it disciplinary action plus, because it requires a lot more work and a lot more thinking through with the victim as well as the perpetrator of something that's happened. So a lot of that was on full display as well during the 2-day conference that I went to. So I just want to, I guess, for several reasons, I think I've tried to develop and to tailor most of my professional development around either CBE, UDL, or SEL as much as I could, and I just want to share with you a few of my thoughts and reflection as I took the takeaways I took away from last week.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to announce that we have a couple of changes on the board committees. For the roles and support staff negotiations, there will be Millie Nelson and Ralph Hodgman. And we're going to have a new committee, which is going to be the athletic committee, and that will be Greg Cook and Millie Nelson. And I'll be writing things up about that later. The one request I do have is that we have an RFP out for roof replacements at Lakeway that are due in May 1st. And I would request that when they're open, that the facilities committee members be there.
Can I ask just a clarifying question about the athletic committee? I know that's new. What's the expectation with that?
The committee will just meet with the athletic director on a quarterly basis to review
And me?
what
And the
teams and
principal?
stuff like that.
And the principal, right?
No, just the athletic director, and then they will ask for somebody else to be here if they need to.
What's the purpose of the committee? This is the first, I think anybody in this room pretty much is hearing of this, so could the board share with the rest of us the purpose?
The purpose is to review the athletics, to see what's going on, maybe assist in any purchases of uniforms, anything else? Just to look at it, make sure that everything's okay. I haven't written it all up yet, but
Okay.
we discussed it.
Okay.
Could I mean, as a coach, I think you should appoint members of the board that don't have a conflict of interest with that. And Greg being on the board would be a conflict
For what?
for the athletic committee, or because
think so.
his wife is a coach. That would be a conflict.
We'll discuss it.
Okay.
Thanks. So, right now, we have a non-public session. So I need a motion to go into non-public.
I'll make a motion to enter into non-public session under paragraph 2, section 3 of the RSA 91A:3 of the right to know law for, I'm not sure what. Matters which are discussed in public would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the board. We don't have any,
Do you have any nominations or
no, I didn't see any.
nothing?
First, you can do it for personnel.
Yeah, we just had that one.
Okay.
I didn't see any nominations for
Just for
personnel.
personnel?
So is there anything, so just 3 is enough, or
Yeah.
okay, taking with us the superintendent?
And the administrative staff.
The administrative staff?
Yeah.
Are we taking Tom with us and?
Yeah, and Patty.
Ethan and Austin, thanks for sticking through.
Need a second, Andy.
A second.
Roll call vote.
Greg Cook?
Rob Hodge.
Tim Woodson?
Wait a minute. We'll take a 5-minute
Thank you
break.
for coming.